So buying a home or selling a home can be one of those tricky things, one of those very personal decisions that you're going to make in your lifetime pretty much. And in this video, what I really want to focus on is giving you those tips, the very best kept secrets about buying and selling your home, and some of those things that you never really get to talk about, or some of those things that you might think of and you're not asking the other person, or they might just seem very obvious. Those are the things I really want to cover. And I have 8 points on this, both on the buying side and on the selling side. It's going to be a very interesting video for those who are seasoned buyers, because this is some of those things where you'll hear some of the things that I'm mentioning and you'll be like, oh shucks, I should have done that, I should have paid attention to that, or I remember when I did not know this. And if you are a first-time home buyer, don't worry, I got you. There's a video that I did on this, a very detailed video about the buying process and what you can do from the first point all the way up until the end of your buying process, and I have the video linked somewhere here. You can go through that, but if you're watching this, you'll still gather some really good tips that will help you navigate this market in 2024. So the first point out of the 8 that I have here for you is you do not pay commission to the buying agent. The reason I have this here is because I've had clients who have been in front of me and I have this buyer consultation with them, and after towards the end of the consultation they feel like, oh my goodness, Clement, you might be too expensive, how much will I have to pay you for all this? I tell them, like, you're not paying me anything, I get paid by the seller. And I just see the whole face, just the relief they have at that point. So as a buying agent, I get paid by the seller. I get to negotiate my commission with the seller, and that is where I get paid. So I only get paid once a transaction has gone through. Once you've already bought your property and you have moved in and you have the keys, that's the time that I get paid, and it's not coming from your pocket, it's coming from the seller's side. Which leads me to my second point, which is you do not pay to submit an offer. A lot of buyers get confused on this point here, because I've had clients of mine who have lost transactions because they thought they had to pay to submit an offer. Typically, before you submit an offer, I always show you the comparables, and some sellers usually have set the price very high, and some clients feel like, I don't even think I have an opportunity to go up there. And I would tell them, like, listen, let's submit an offer to the number that you're able to do, and let's get into the negotiations and see what the sellers would want to work with us. But a lot of times they did not submit it, and they did not share with me that they thought they had to pay to submit the offer. And that is something that I did not realize. So this is why I added this in here. So just remember, when you're submitting an offer, you do not pay anything up until the offer is accepted, which is one of the points that I'm going to be talking about. So you don't pay anything to submit an offer, whether you're dealing with an agent, whoever you're dealing with. You submit your offer, and if the seller does not like it or rejects it, you can move on. If the seller likes it, which is what you want, then you deal with what needs to happen from then on. So the third point that we have here is you have 24 hours to provide the deposit once your offer is accepted. So whether your offer is conditional or a firm offer, you still have to provide a deposit if your offer has been accepted. Now, the typical rule of thumb, the deposit is always 5% of your purchase price. So if your offer is $500,000, 5% of that is $25,000 that you have to provide within 24 hours. Now, when I say the rule of thumb that is 5% of the purchase price, sometimes it can be less than 5%, which is okay. The big thing that I want you to understand here is you have 24 hours to provide this, or your offer will be null and void, meaning the offer is dead, and the seller in this case has the right to accept any other offer that comes in after the 24 hours. Now, in some cases, which I completely understand, and I've been through this, where I have my clients who have their funds, their money locked in somewhere, and the bank is going to release them within 48 hours, or some banks will release the funds within 72 hours. That's why a buyer consultation is important. I always explain to my clients, make sure you have this deposit in a bank account where you have access to it within 24 hours. Now, in the case of you not having access to it within that 24 hours, and the bank can only release it within 48 or 72 hours, and we have 24 hours to provide the deposit, we can always go to the seller and provide an amendment to create extra time for you to find the deposit. Now, remember, when you have an amendment, the seller has the right to reject that amendment and deal with another offer. So just keep that in mind. Now, the other point on this 24 hours is, this is another point where A lot of seller agents, I don't like it when buyer agents use this as a tool as well. But you as a buyer, you do have this as a tool. So when you have, let's say your offer was happening late at night at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and you have another day to provide the deposit. Now, during that period, when you have buyer's remorse, you've slept over it and you're like, oh, I don't think that's the house I want to go for. That's the home I want to purchase. Now, that's what you call buyer's remorse, and you can use this deposit to get out of this transaction. Because if you don't provide the deposit, the offer is null and void. So just keep that in mind. Now, the fourth point that I have for you is buyer visits. Now, a few things on this buyer visit. The first thing with this buyer visit, a lot of buyers get this confused. A buyer visit is not the same as an inspection. You can choose to use one of your buyer visits to do an inspection. The seller has the right to reject it as an inspection. But if you choose to use it as an inspection, just know whatever you find at this point, just know it's not going to be valid, or if you bring it to the seller's attention, it's not going to be valid, because a buyer visit only happens after your offer is now complete, in terms of you're just waiting for closing. I'll give you a good example. You submitted an offer and the offer has been accepted, whether it's conditional or firm, and all the conditions have been fulfilled, and now your offer is dependent on a 30-day close. So now you're just waiting for those 30 days, and within those 30 days, you have 2 buyer visits before the closing date. So how you could use this buyer visit is by going there, looking at the unit or looking at the home, seeing what kind of couch you want to buy, looking what kind of bed, doing some measurements of each room. You can use one of those buyer visits for that. The other buyer visit, which is towards the end of it, I will say at least a week before the 30 days are up, you want to go back to the house, condo, townhouse, and look at the fixtures, look at the washer, look at the dryer, look at the lights. Make sure everything is working as you saw when you were doing the initial visits before you purchased it. And if there's anything wrong with this, that's when you can go ahead and bring it up to your lawyer. Last point about the buyer visit, just know if it's not in the agreement during your transaction, during your negotiations, the seller has the right to just say outright no to you coming to their property for a buyer visit. So just make sure it's in the agreement that you're signing. And typically you have up until, I'll say, 1 to 5 business days, depending on the closing that you have. If you have a 120-day close that you're waiting, you can do up until maybe 3 buyer visits, and the seller has the right to reduce those number of buyer visits to just 2. The standard in the business has always been 2 buyer visits up before any closing date. So just keep that in mind for this buyer visit. It's very important to understand this. The 5th tip on here, which I really think is the most important tip, really, I should have it as number 1, really, is the exit plan. And I'll explain this. The exit plan is important. I started introducing this after 2 to 3 years in my business. This is when I realized, okay, I need to have an exit plan for all my clients. I had this for myself, and I now introduced it for all my clients after 2 to 3 years, because I started realizing all the clients that I dealt with within my first year in the business, all of them wanted to relocate, wanted to move out. And I realized, like, we didn't really talk about this initially. Once this started happening, I was like, okay, let me go back to the drawing board and make sure all my buyer consultations, I'm including an exit plan for all my clients. So what I mean by an exit plan, it's important to know what you're going to do with the property you want to purchase after 3 to 5 years. People come to me and they tell me, Clement, I'm buying this home and I don't want to ever move. And that same client will come back to me within 3 to 4 years. Clement, I'm thinking we might want to move somewhere else. Our family's getting bigger. So it's important to have a good exit plan, and make sure you plan it and look at all scenarios, good scenarios, bad scenarios. It helps you understand what's going to happen to you if the interest rates go really high. What kind of exit plan do you have? If things are really good and your property is appreciated tremendously, what can you do in terms of investing? So I usually create a really good real estate portfolio for a lot of my clients today, and it's very good. A lot of people that have reached out to me, a lot of people that I've talked to this year about this real estate portfolio, it has been very beneficial for them because of how the real estate market has been. So tip number 6, I really should have had this as number 1, honestly, and I've already talked about it here, and this is the buyer consultation. I don't know how anybody can go ahead and start looking at properties before you've done a buyer consultation. consultation. That's just a recipe for disaster. Listen, for some of you, it might work out where you go and visit a home and you're like, okay, this is it. And you just deal with the agent that's in front of you. And I'm going to give you an offer and let's move forward. A lot of times that is very risky because you're moving without a clear plan of what you want to do moving forward. So a buyer consultation, what this does for you, we get to talk about everything from all the way from the top all the way up until the end. And I explain to you what you need to know about this whole process. I give you all the scenarios, the good scenarios, the bad scenarios. I talk about the neighborhood that you want. We talk about potentially moving farther away. What's that going to cost you? Potentially staying closer. What's that going to cost you? A buyer consultation is very important because we get to have a good discussion. Apart from the relationship that you and I will create in that room when we are talking, and you get to know the person that you're dealing with, you feel like you can trust the person, because that is part of the consultation that I absolutely love. I love working with people that love working with me because it makes the process very, very smooth, and we are able to communicate throughout the process. So this buyer consultation is important. You get to know the agent that you're dealing with. You get to understand the process, what you're about to get yourself into in this real estate market, because I get to explain to you what's going on in terms of interest rates, in terms of purchase price, in terms of the micro neighborhood that you're looking at, and what it will take to submit an offer, really. So you avoid this frustrations that you could potentially have. So I introduced a buyer consultation once after I dealt with a client and I had close to 10 offers, which was just a nightmare. We were going to house after house after house after house. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm not doing this again until I've done a buyer consultation with a client and they have a good understanding. So I offer this. It's free of charge. Book your appointment. A lot of people have always reached out to me, just like yourself, who's watching this, and you feel like, okay, maybe I need to talk to you. Shoot me a text, shoot me an email. We'll be able to have a quick conversation and then take it from there, really. So this leads me to point number 7, which is huge, where I know a lot of you are already thinking, oh, Clement, you're just doing this because you want me to sign with you. So point number 7 is you do not have to sign with any real estate agent in the beginning process. The only time you have to sign, and legally we have to do this, is when we are submitting an offer. So when you come in front of myself, a real estate agent, you do not have to sign anything on that first buyer consultation. So if an agent is telling you, you need to sign this document for us to work together, you do not have to do that. Now, and legally, you do not have to sign any agreement within the first buyer consultation that you're having. So just keep that in mind. The only time that signing of an agreement has to be done, a buyer representation agreement is called, you have to sign that when you are submitting an offer to the seller. Then point number 8. So what is this point? And this is pay attention to the monthly payments as opposed to the purchasing price. If there's anything you want to take away from this video, it's this point right here. A lot of buyers, particularly first-time home buyers, who get so mixed up in the purchasing price. So you're focused on how big that number is, and you're forgetting the monthly payments. In negotiations, you'll get buyers that were so hell-bent on, I need the seller to come down $5,000 or I'm not moving forward with this property at all. And not realizing that $5,000 does absolutely nothing to your monthly payments. So when you're going out shopping, you want to understand what your monthly payments, what are you most comfortable with? Are you most comfortable with $4,000 a month? Is that good enough for you and your family, your wife, your kids? Are you able to afford that? Are you only able to afford $3,000? Could you sustain $6,000 a month? So what does that $4,000 a month give you in a purchasing price? Does it bring you up until $700,000 or does it bring you up until $600,000? I don't know, because that's very dependent on the down payment that you're paying. So when you focus on that monthly payment, it will not tell you what the maximum price that you can actually purchase. So if it's $5,000, for example, and that $5,000 can get you a property of $900,000, then let's go and look at a property for $900,000, because we understand that's going to bring you up until $5,000 there. Now, if you're looking at a property that's listed at $860,000 and you know you can afford that $5,000, and you are in a bid with 3 or 4 other offers, and the offer you've submitted is, let's say, around $880,000, and another buyer has submitted an offer of $880,000, and you're telling yourself like, no, I'm not going to go up another $10,000 because I don't want to be involved in these biddings. And I get a lot of this. What you want to do is look at that $10,000 extra that you're putting on the purchase price. What does that $10,000 extra do on your monthly payment of $5,000? And if you do that math, in reality, that's probably going to add on another $2 or $3 on your monthly payments to get that extra 10,000 to bid everyone who is submitting an offer on that particular day, and you get the home that you absolutely want. And that's what I mean by focus on the monthly payment as opposed to the purchasing price when you're doing your negotiations. If a seller is countering back an offer for you and you're looking at that offer, you don't like the purchasing price, and you look at it and like, okay, what does this do for me on a monthly basis? Can I afford this? If it's too much, and be honest with yourself, if it's too much, move on. Don't even entertain it. If it's something that you can work with, now leave that to me and I see how much lower we can come in terms of the purchasing price. Then we're able to move forward or not. So if there's anything you can take away from this part about the buyer tips, is focus on the monthly payments as opposed to the purchase price. Yes, the purchase price, yes, you pay attention to it, but the monthly payments really influence what you can do on the purchase price, really, because we can have this discussion and I can show you how you can work these two numbers to be able to get what you want and to make it make sense for yourself as well. So this is all the tips that I have for you in terms of the buying side. So I hope you found this very helpful for you. If you have any questions, so let's say if you are, whether you're 9 days or you're 90 days away from purchasing, a lot of people who are looking to move into the Greater Toronto area, I've always found that they can shoot me a text, shoot me an email, or give me a call, and I'll be able to help you throughout this process and make it a very smooth transition for you to find a home that you want. So just do that. I have a link down here where you can also book a personal one-on-one Zoom consultation with myself, and we can have this conversation in detail of where you are and just see if it makes sense for you and I to work together or not. Up until next time, have a good one. Thank you. Bye.